You're listening to Mixing Mindsets. I'm Andrew Blank.
And I'm Eric Navrosky, and we hope you find some value out of these conversations about lifestyle, music, and more. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Mixing Mindsets. Today we have Anne, also known as Altered Pink, and we're going to be talking about doing it for the right reasons.
Anne, what's going on?
Not much. Just happy to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
We actually just finished up a big part of your EP. I think it's pretty much done.
I think we just finished your EP.
That was the last thing we needed.
That was it.
So
All right,
now
cool.
it's done. So
Let's start by just introducing you for maybe a couple minutes or so.
Okay.
If you just want to tell people, the Altered Pink thing is this is like a recently chosen name, right?
Yes. So I always just went by Annalise Music because I wasn't really sure what else. And then once I decided that I did want to actually start releasing some of my songs, I didn't necessarily want to have my official government name on anything.
Right. Yeah.
And Altered Pink just made sense to me. I first of all love the color pink.
Yes.
I'm very much obsessed with pink.
Yes, it's your aesthetic.
Yes, absolutely. And then I also kind of, when I put my life into perspective a little bit, I realized that I see a lot of my life through rose-colored glasses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I kind of live in an altered state of pink all the time. So I figured it was very fitting.
Yeah.
Kind of aligns a lot with the type of things that I write about in my music too.
Yes.
So.
I have to say, because Ann and I did a lot of co-writing sessions prior to we're tracking everything stuff in the studio. I love the type of person that Ann is.
That's the best thing I've ever heard.
Well, truthfully, it's because she always comes from this place of lyricism and meaning are at the forefront of everything. I find that beautiful in its own right.
Yeah.
I mean, truthfully, don't get me wrong. I love a great riff. I love heavy,
good riffing.
I love good riffing and great instrumentals, which you totally need 100% of the time. But I don't know. I had to kind of turn that off for our co-writing sessions, and it was more so this derives from
a genuineness.
Yeah, a genuineness and a realness to get the message across. And it's everything else is supplemental to whatever the core of the message is going to be. Yeah. And I love that.
Thank you. I've been writing poetry since I was a kid. It's something I've always used as a form of self-expression, usually for a long time just for me, just to kind of get my emotions out and whatever, kind of try to process everything that goes on in my life. And then it wasn't until I started playing the ukulele. At first I started just doing covers because it was fun,
right,
Then I was like, wait, I've technically been writing songs my whole life.
Exactly.
What am I doing? Yeah. And I like to really try to encapsulate a feeling into a song, and that's where a lot of it comes from. It's just for example, Sunday's Best. I got a knock on the door by these evangelists, and they were just the nicest people I had ever encountered, and it filled me up so much in a way that I didn't even really know that I needed at the time, and it gave me a lot of perspective on just the world and on spirituality and a lot of things and so they left and I sat down and I was like, well, I guess I gotta write something because how else can I process what just happened to me?
Exactly.
And
I think that's what's going to stick with people is that there is a genuine experience and a genuine storytelling to that experience that people naturally I think there's an unspokenness to music that we can't really quantify, but you're just when you hear something that is genuine, you kind of I really like this. Right. I don't really know why. There's just something there.
I think it has a lot to do with the story.
Yeah.
I think the fact that the song is almost like the cover of the book, and there's so much more depth to it. The fact that we can sit here and you can tell me where a song's meaning derived from, and we could sit here and we can conversate about that. I think that's a huge thing. Right. And I think that itself kind of speaks to oh wait, there's a realness coming from this, and there's either a message or a full experience behind the song, and that's I think that's songwriting done correctly.
Well, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I will say it always makes me a little bit nervous just because, like I said, for a long time I did it just for me.
Yeah.
Right.
And even when I started actually making songs, it still was mostly just for me, alone in my living room,
Yeah.
not really willing to share any of it with the world because I'm so terrified of it for some reason. I don't know. And even now I still kind of get tripped up because they are based so much on like my very personal experience that I'm like, is this too specific? Is somebody not gonna like be able to relate to this? Because this is like very much an experience that I had on the side of the street by
Yeah,
myself
yeah.
one day
Yeah.
3 years ago. You know that like nobody else can directly relate to that thing, but maybe they can at least relate to
Derive some type of meaning from
the
it.
overwhelming emotion that came out of it, or like the perspective that I kind of was able to gain from that. I think ultimately is a universal experience, and you just usually get it from your own facet, you know.
Right.
I think
So-
not only that is that your music throws an insight into your life. So as a listener, I think people naturally just like knowing the person that they're listening to.
Yes.
You know, I mean, how many people haven't gone through middle school and done a deep dive into the bands that they've been listening to? Like, I know every member.
Right.
I know their
This song means
birthdays.
this because this
Yeah.
guy went through that.
Yeah, I know all. I know all of that. So I think it's just naturally, it's like, okay, this is, you can listen to Anne's music and now know a little bit more about Anne.
Exactly.
I think is a little opposite of the way that like I kind of write music too, which is why I think I respect it so much and it's cool, because I'm not much of a lyricist myself, so I just kind of write like cool riffs.
Yeah.
So like you're getting to know me, I guess, by my music because it's like a cool riff, and you could get to know me in terms of what I sort of like, but you wouldn't be able to listen to my music and get to know me
Get to
as
know you. Yeah.
experiences like that I've had. And I think people really like that. They like it a lot
100%.
when they listen to it and they're like, oh man, I feel like I've tapped into this person's
There's all
life.
sorts of different ways. I just think there's this pureness that comes out of that, and you're really able to like Anne's songs are kind of like if Anne was writing a book, this would be, just
Yeah.
autobiography. Like
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very much
That's-
just like
it's very much that
it's the
type of
summation
ordeal.
my life and my experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
and
could-
what I hear often too is that the way I write is just reflects the way I talk. So when people that know me really well hear these songs that we've been working on, and they're like, "That's just you,
That's you."
man! Like
Yeah.
that's just you in there."
Exactly.
And like that's all I ever really wanted it to be is
Yeah.
like just
Yeah.
an expression of myself that other people can choose to relate to or to listen to or whatever they want to do with it after it's
Yeah.
out there.
Which would totally make sense why you were a little more anxious to even get this process moving, because at the end of the day, I'm going to hold this CD, I'm going to give it to someone, and it's not just like, hey, I think this is the cool thing that it did. You're literally handing it and you're saying, excuse me, you're like, this is literally me.
Right. Right. Here's all my
You know?
thoughts and feelings and all the
Yeah,
times that
you're
I've
the-
cried.
And there's
you know?
there's a huge vulnerableness
Yeah.
to that. And that's a very difficult thing to just say, like, here, everybody.
Right.
Anyone who
However,
feels like listening.
Yeah, the greater the risk, ultimately, the greater the reward, and I guess that relates to like personal gratification. I think you're going to be able to achieve more out of putting yourself in a vulnerable place and putting it out into the world, especially if it's received, well. Like,
And you know what? I have to say though, like I already feel like I've achieved everything that I possibly could have wanted out of this just by doing it, because
Yeah.
I've been so afraid for so long, and I've wanted to be a musician since I was a kid in middle school, and
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't even really start to consider it until about 3 years ago, and then I started taking it seriously within the last year. And it was terrifying for me to come into the studio and record vocals in front of people and with those headphones on, and you guys are only listening to my like raw voice. That is the most terrifying thing I think I've ever done in my life. And
Which you had more people here than typical.
yes,
yes, you brought
so,
your crew.
like,
I like
Yeah.
to be supported.
Yeah.
Yes.
But still, like, even though, like, on one end, yeah, the 5 people behind you are supporting you.
Mm-hmm.
On the other end, it's like there are 5 people behind me staring at me.
Right. Yes.
Oh no.
Yeah. It was really, really stressful. And I wanted it so bad.
Yeah.
So I knew that I just had to do it.
Yeah.
And if I didn't do it, I was going to spend the rest of my life wishing that I
Yeah,
did.
I think we touched on that
Yeah.
like a couple times.
Yeah.
You know, just like I commend you for just taking the dive. Now, I tell this to a lot of people because I feel like we frequently will like run into people that just take this dive, and I love people that do that.
Yeah, right.
Like, the people that just go for things. I think that correlates to the topic. You know?
Yeah. It comes from a personal goal, less of like, I'm going to make music and make money, more to like, I just need to achieve this thing, like in my life.
Right.
You know, I need to achieve like getting out of my comfort zone,
Right.
breaking through those walls that like you've put up yourself. You know,
Yeah,
'cause-
that applies to any goal, but like we just so happen to be speaking to there's about music, but there's like a self gratification and like, hey, I want to accomplish this. I thought it was unattainable for so many years, but hey, wait a minute, there's actually a door here.
Right.
Let me find out what happens, and you just kind of keep going.
Yeah, and I realized like a few months ago, I realized I was in a position knowing that how badly I wanted this and was just sitting on it and sitting on songs that I had been writing and whatever. And I started to develop a relationship with Eric because I was coming to practice with the guys. And, you know, like all of these resources were available and it was like right at my fingertips. And I was like, the only thing keeping me from doing this is just like being afraid.
Essentially, the only thing keeping me from doing it is you.
Right, exactly, exactly. So, and even now that like everything's kind of being finished up and I'm trying to like work out how I want to release these songs and whatever.
Right.
I've been trying to take it back to that very first conversation we had on the phone a couple months ago now, where I remember saying like, I don't really care if anybody listens to it. I just want to do it because like this is it's been eating away at me for my whole life that this is what I wanted and I'm just not going after it. And
you know,
this is
personal goal.
enough.
Yeah, to keep that at the core of it is just it's such a great thing, especially like post putting music out. I think people often get like shaded by like because it happens to me. It happens. I would assume it happens to everyone. When you put music out, sometimes you forget that.
Yeah.
Like you forget like, oh wait, I did this for my own personal gratification because now like people like if people enjoy it, you're just kind of like, ooh, like I should try to get more people to enjoy it. So like I love that you remember that. Like if you keep that at the core of everything you do, you, in my opinion, you're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah. So we literally just finished up the last bit of tracking on your album like an hour ago. Now that the tracking process is finished, give us your thoughts about like where you were in the beginning, where you are now, where you were in the middle. Did it get easier along the way? Was it a grind and really hard through the whole
Especially
thing?
in terms of like your confidence. That's what I'm curious
Yeah,
about.
like what happened to like your mind during this process?
Well, I came into the whole process with zero confidence whatsoever. And it really makes me laugh to hear you talk about like my lyricism because the first time I ever went out to your house to like have a songwriting session, I was like, these songs are so bad and like he's gonna think I'm so dumb, you know? And like I don't know why I just get so in my head that like everybody else maybe I think this is good and everybody else thinks it's bad and I'm some big joke or something, right? And like that's crazy. I know that's crazy. But it took you know, a couple of those sessions with you to be like, okay, like the things that I'm doing aren't necessarily bad. They need work because it's the same 4 chords on my ukulele with the same strum pattern over and over again. But like the actual like valuable piece, the message that's in there is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So I started to kind of gain a little bit more confidence as we were like building out demos and things like that. Getting into the actual studio and recording it, it felt like a lot of it went away because I was just so afraid that I couldn't really remember and hold on to that confidence that I found in the beginning. And even now, it wasn't until Eric, you had sent that video of like my raw vocals for I think it was Spilled Paint.
Yeah.
That
of just the harmonies. You can see that on my Instagram.
Yes. That took me a couple days to really wrap my head around where I was like, that is literally my voice.
Yeah.
I've never heard it like that before. And I was like, this is good.
Yeah.
What the heck? Is
Yeah.
that me? You know?
Yeah.
And other people are like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. My mom, I sent it to my mom. She sent it to like 25 people. Like
That's awesome.
She just kept sending me more text messages. Like, I also sent it to these 5 people and whatever. And like,
Right.
I was like, geez, okay. Like, hopefully it is as good as I think it is, because this could be pretty embarrassing.
Right.
But, you know, as it gets kind of closer to that release date, and I have a lot of friends and just like personal supporters who are like dying to hear it and can't wait for me to put it out so that they can share it and
Such
whatever.
a great thing to have, like a network of just people, like, especially in the same like community that want to be involved in support.
Yeah, and it really helps to build up that confidence that I do have, because there are people who have been musicians for a long time that I really respect and admire, and I can confidently say I probably wouldn't be where I am as a musician right now if I hadn't met them and built relationships with them in that way.
Yeah.
And for them to come back and say, these are incredible and I'm so proud of you and you should be proud of yourself and like, look how far you've come. Like, yeah, you're right. I am proud of me. And I did come far, you know? So it feels really good.
You have that like very uplifting story, like humble beginnings. Like,
Yeah, it took a while to get here, but about 25 years or so. But
There
here
you
we
go.
are.
So that's awesome to hear, like, that you've got from that, you know, point A to point B there. But in the middle, how did you feel? Because obviously it didn't take us a short amount of time to track this. Like, you know, it was a in-depth stuff. Like, it took us a while to do it. Like, did it get easier? Like 50% through tracking your stuff, was it a little bit easier, or was it equally as difficult until you can feel like, okay, it's done and I can breathe?
So I think it kind of got a little bit easier until we started to work on the harmonies, because I had to go a little bit outside of my comfort zone. And there was an extra person in the room that I had met for the very first time.
Oh, yeah.
So then I was like, oh, man.
Shout out Derek Nowak.
Right, yeah. He's great. Very nice. There's no real reason for me to be like so nervous in front of him.
He's
But
a stranger,
yes,
essentially.
and
I
I really cried in front of him that day. It was a pretty big emotional day for me. And aside from just tracking my vocals, pretty much everything else I've been doing, I've been trying to take it one step at a time, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't even really think about it while I'm doing it. Like, I remember I finished my logo. I worked on it for weeks,
Right.
and then it was done. So I was like, great, I'm going to post this tomorrow. I typed up everything. I like drafted it. I woke up the next day, I hit send, and then my phone's blowing up all day. And I was like, oh, I just announced that I was releasing music. Like, I didn't even realize that I did that because I was so like focused on the task itself that I wasn't like looking at the big picture, and it makes it a lot more manageable because now I'm not getting stressed out of like, well, these people didn't really respond.
There's no pressure.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought that these people would say something and they didn't. I just really was like,
The best-
that's
I feel
done.
like
What's
I have
next?
to get this done.
Right.
At least for me, I adapt that mentality pretty often as well. It's kind of like, put it out in the world. Whoever sees it, sees it. I put my effort into it.
It was entirely absent-minded for me.
Yes.
I just was
That's
like,
how you get things done.
right, this
for
is something I
productivity,
needed to do, and I got it done, and now I'm on to the next thing. And then once that was over, I was like, oh, that was a lot bigger than I realized. And the same with the video that the brand Mav had put out recently with a little snippet of Sunday's Best in it.
Sick. Yep.
That was the first time like the general public is hearing
Kind of got
that
a
song.
taste. Yeah.
And I did not think twice about it until people are like, that song is so good, I can't wait to hear it. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Like I am like literally
Wait, that was
like
me.
doing this. Right. Yeah. Like I keep forgetting, you know, because I'm so like in the moment of the task that I'm working on, just trying to get through it. And I think if I think too much big picture and like, oh, I am releasing all this music and I've got all these things I need to do that. And how do I want to present it and whatever, that's where I start to lose this is for me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if I take it one step at a time, like I spent 3 or 4 weeks hand drawing that logo and it was 100% for me, and people were giving me feedback. And if I didn't want to take their feedback, it was because this is what I like about it and it's mine.
Right.
And, then it was done and
You
I
get
moved
the
on to the
ultimate
next
say.
thing. Right. And when I start to think like, how do I want this all to be perceived? Then I'm like, how I should only focus about how I want to perceive it myself.
Yes.
Because it ultimately is just a project for me
At
to
the
make.
end of the, like, you know, in 10 years, you're going to look back at, and are you satisfied with it? That's what
Exactly.
you can be asking yourself.
Yeah,
Right.
if you only focus on what other people are thinking about it, like I think that's a recipe kind of for disaster because no matter what happens, you're going to release your music and someone's going to listen to it and go, this is the worst crap I've ever heard. Doesn't matter if it's the best thing you've ever done or whatever, or anything in between. Somebody somewhere will tell you this is awful.
Yeah.
And if you're only doing it for like the satisfaction and gratification of other people, that comment is going to kill you.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's going to rip you apart on the inside.
About something like that, like this, a couple days ago. But I remember I quoted John Frusciante, and I just talked about how there was a quote from him that said something like, I could put out like some of my greatest work ever, and there's a chance that no one in the world ever hears it, but I would still be satisfied.
Yeah.
Well, very recently I posted that same video I was just talking about on TikTok, and somebody commented on it and said, "This sounds like farm emo."
Farm
emo.
Yes, and I didn't know.
Femo, yeah.
Oh, Femo.
Yeah.
Right, no, exactly. Right.
We're on to something here.
I didn't know if I was meant to take it as an insult or a compliment or what. I just decided to take it as a compliment.
Absolutely.
But
And you threw your suspenders on and
I just went, I got to tend to the chickens and all that. So, but I just was like, what does that even mean? And that's what I'm subjecting myself to as I continue to push out and make my things public.
Yeah.
And, and I just have to be okay with that, with somebody having an opinion.
You gotta learn to laugh at that if you see it. I mean, it's usually best to try to just avoid that kind of stuff for the sake of your own psyche. But however, though, if you see it, just know that, like, at least my opinion on it is I never really think twice about it, because I'm just like, you're never gonna, you would. People on the internet are bold, but like they're never actually like that.
Yeah.
Security of a screen and keyboard.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Keyboard warriors.
Yeah, keyboard warriors.
And I actually had a very similar conversation yesterday because I played a set last night at like a private ticketed event.
Yep.
And
you weren't invited.
So I was really nervous and I was getting a little bit worked up, and I was like, what if I mess up and whatever? And one of my coworkers is like, you know what, like, your stuff is good. Like, people are going to like it. If you mess up, you mess up. Who cares? And she was like, tell them that they can just go do it themselves if they're going to complain about it. And I was like, you know what, like, who would ever actually walk up to a person and say, like, your set was bad?
Right.
Like, nobody would ever do that. So, like, what am I afraid of?
Only the worst type of person would do that.
Right. And, like, usually it's not even because it's bad. It's because they're miserable.
Yes.
So, like,
it falls back on them 100%.
That's typically where a lot of negative comments come from, because I feel like if you put out something bad or did something bad, the way that someone who truthfully cares would address it is not that way. So for example, I think like when we're recording vocals, like not every vocal take is the best take. So if I'm like, hey, that wasn't great, like, let's do it again, I'm not going to be like, and that was bad. We need to,
Just
like,
completely like kill the morale. Like,
that sucked.
Not only was that take bad, it was the worst take I've ever heard.
Yeah. So like the people who actually do that kind of stuff, like they don't care and they don't matter. Like the people who are going to criticize and want you to get better aren't going to say it that way. Right. They'll just, they'll do it the right way. It actually
comes constructively and not just as like a mean insult to make you feel worse.
Yeah, exactly. Because the mean insults, like nobody who actually throws mean insults is trying to help you.
Exactly.
Right.
However, I'd probably throw that comment at Derek Nowak.
Oh, that was the worst thing ever.
Just because I know he could just sing laps around me. So like people like that who actually are extremely confident and good, I'll look at them and I'll be like, yo, that was the worst thing I've ever heard, even though it's like slightly off.
He's also like one of our best friends. So like he's not a stranger.
I hate him.
Yeah. He actually after that session of like figuring out harmonies and everything, he came to me and he was like, that was awesome. I loved that. Like, that was so much fun.
Cool.
Like, we need to do that more. Yeah. So,
absolutely. Well,
he had a blast, and he thinks you're a really great singer. So
that's awesome. I'll have to tell him thank you.
Yeah, please.
And Andrew and I will be working on new music soon. And what I would really like to do is just kind of keep the ball rolling. You know,
I think that's the best thing to do.
Yeah. So
if you have something to say, do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I never really stop writing. So, might as well just keep it going,
Absolutely. That's great.
That's how you build a career out of that.
So, at this point in time, it It's like December. It's early December, right?
Yep, right.
And your music is not out yet. And I don't know when this is going to air, but if it's not out or if it is out at the time, Altered Pink Music is your Instagram handle, correct?
Yes.
Do you have any other socials that you're looking to promote?
I am also on TikTok as Altered Pink Music.
Yeah.
All of my other socials are personal.
Yes.
Ah.
So stay away.
Okay, I'm glad I didn't say anything. Okay, yeah. So hopefully we'll hear music from you very soon. I mean, obviously I did, but but the public and whatnot, they can follow updates of whenever that's going to come out. I don't want to say dates just in case anything changes, but hopefully soon-ish something will come out, and that'll be great. That EP is great. I love it. I think the songwriting is excellent, and I think
Chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss, yeah. Italian hand, or whatever that is.
Ravioli.
Ravioli hand. It's amazing. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up. We're hitting the 30-minute mark here. Cool. So,
well, thank you guys for having me on the podcast. I really could not have done any of this without either of you, and it means a whole heck of a lot to me that you guys have been willing to work with me through this. It's really valuable. So,
it's only I always am very appreciative when someone lets me involved into your emotional state almost like.
You got to be vulnerable.
You have to be vulnerable to do this kind of stuff, and it's very hard to let people in. So thank you very much for letting us in.
Anytime. I'm happy to do it over and over again so we could just keep making cool songs, I guess.
Exactly.
So. We think you're doing it for the right reasons.
I hope so.
You have to call back.
Yes.
Okay, one more time. Altered Pink Music on Instagram and on TikTok. Look it up. The EP is great. It's coming out soon. Thank you so much for listening. Peace.
Peace.
Bye.